Hello there, I'm Azara Tagaya. Welcome to Ringgit Sense. On today's show, we'll be looking at the new e-hailing laws that were passed in Parliament last month. Now, with the amendments to the Land Public Transport Act 2010 and Commercial Vehicles Licensing Board Act 1987, Malaysia will be the first country in the world to legalize e-hailing. The Land Public Transportation Commission, SPAD, has issued new guidelines to regulate the industry and has given the e-hailing companies a year to implement them. As Malaysians feel the pinch in their wallet, many have turned to becoming e-hailing drivers. According to SPAD, there are an estimated 180,000 e-hailing drivers in Malaysia, and 70% of them are driving part-time. We spoke to two full-time e-hailing drivers who drive for Grab to find out how much they make and what are the hidden costs. Take a look. Nam Chin Yuen and Dinesh Warren have both been Grab car drivers for more than a year. The amount an e-hailing driver makes depends on how often they drive and also the location they drive at. Most full-time drivers choose to drive at rush hour, where they can make more.
Around 4,000 to 6,000. It only depends on how many hours you put in, how long you drive.
Biasa, I pukul 7 starting kerja dekat KL, then sampai pukul 5 ke pukul 7. And then tengah hari ada lehat 1-2 jam lah, macam tu lah.
Okay, I wake up in the morning, send my kids to school, send my wife to work. Then I start driving until 11. Then go back home, rest for a while, then start back again evening. 4 to 11 night. It's better because the peak hours, rush hours, more people coming back from work.
For full-time drivers, the main cost of business is maintaining their vehicles.
Petrol saja satu minggu sudah 300 lebih. Lepas tu maintenance 1 bulan 1 kali atau 2 minggu 1 kali. Maintenance always pun 300-400 macam tu.
Both Nam and Dinesh are now part of Grab's Project Gold, where they rent a Nissan Almera and pay a weekly rental amount.
In this project, they provide you a car, and also they give you free maintenance for 3 years, and also road tax and insurance is free. So in this project, it's less headache. You just put your petrol and just drive. You don't have to think about maintenance. It's very important to save money because this is a daily paid job. You get your pay daily. So it's very important to keep aside the money in the bank every day. You have to discipline yourself for it. So end of the month, you got to get a whole lump sum. Well, today, Grab operates in 7 countries and they claim to have 71% of the e-hailing drivers in Southeast Asia driving with them. Their biggest competitor in the region is, of course, Uber, the global e-hailing giant. As both companies expand aggressively in Malaysia, customers cheered their arrival while taxi drivers complained about a reduction in their income. We spoke to Grab about their role as a disruptor to the public transportation industry and also about the process of registering as a driver. So we are with Sean Goh, country head of Grab Malaysia. Hi Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, it's our pleasure, but we are actually, we want to find out about the challenges of the ride-sharing industry in Malaysia. So Grab is seen as one of the disruptors or shaking things up in the industry. So when you hear this statement, what do you have to say about that?
At the end of the day, I think Grab is really here to do 3 things, right? We've always been about these 3 things. We're here to, first of all, enhance safety of transportation for all Malaysians. And we're trying to do this in a way that provides access to transportation to more Malaysians across the whole country. And in doing so, the third thing we hope to achieve is to actually enhance livelihood of our driver community. So when we think about change or disruption, we don't come into the industry and make change for the sake of change, right? It's for the purpose of enhancing and achieving these 3 things. So when people are talking about disruption and hey, drivers in the industry are not only able to serve more Malaysians, but they are able to earn more than ever before, that is the kind of disruption that we're very proud of and that we want to continue to drive. But at the same time, disruption can also be seen as a negative word sometimes, right? when disruption happens, there's always changes that people need to adapt to. So that's a part of the growth that we actually need to manage.
So now we're with head of GrabCar Grab Taxi Klang Valley, Wan Kai Teng. Hi Kai Teng, thank you so much for joining us. Take us through the process of registering to be a Grab driver.
Well, it's quite simple really. First of all, you will need your IC, Malaysian IC, your driving license and your insurance cover note. So as a new driver, you could submit your application online, after which we would email you and require you to go through the next steps. Once you submitted all the documents I've mentioned above, you can do either an online training or a face-to-face training at our Grab Driver Center. So if you do an online training, the last step that's required for you is actually a face-to-face verification. And the reason why we do this is to ensure that we have very stringent checks on our platform. And post being verified as a driver and being activated, we do background checks on our driver as well. And even when they start driving with Grab, we ensure that we continue to adhere to these stringent processes by having a lot of SOPs in place to make sure that our driver adhere to the rules of being on our platform.
So what about the car that the drivers use to be a Grab driver? Now, some drivers buy a new car to enter and be a Grab driver. So what happens to the car after 5 years? Do they have to buy a new car?
Okay, so to be a driver on a platform, if you have a car older than 6 years, we will typically run through an inspection on your car. And then if your car is in good condition, you'll be allowed to drive until up to 10 years.
With the legalization of the industry, SPAD has recently unveiled new regulations to better protect customers. Among them, drivers will now undergo background checks by the police and also undergo medical checks. After the break, we speak to Zamri Mahmood, the head of operations for SPAD, to find out how it will affect the drivers and the e-hailing companies. Will it increase the cost of doing business? Stay with us to find out the answer. Welcome back. You're still watching Ringgit Sense with me, Azaria Tagaya, talking about e-hailing regulations. With us in the studio today, we'd like to welcome Zamri Mahmood, the head of operations for the Land Public Transportation Commission, SPAD. Welcome, Tuan Haji, and thank you so much for making time for us on Ringgit Sense.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Well, our pleasure. Okay, so we're talking about the new e-hailing laws. Now, the Land Public Transportation Commission, SPAD, has actually put new regulations in place, and among the new rules that e-hailing operators must obtain an intermediation business license, or IBL. Now, explain to us, what exactly is an IBL and how does it work?
Okay, when the bill obtained the royal assent, and gazetted, which we are targeting for October this year, SPAD will be able to do an additional 2 things. One, we will be able to regulate the e-hailing industry. 2, we will be able to look into the details of those agreements between taxi companies and the drivers. Okay, with the first one, we will require e-hailing operators to apply for the intermediary business license. Okay, to qualify for that license, they have to actually have at least 3 things in their operations. One, they have to have features that will ensure the e-hailing drivers will be able to use in their operations. 2, they must also be registered with our local SSM, and also they are to meet some of our policies we are going to put in place.
Okay. Okay, so some of the things that we've actually read about this the new regulations that will be put in place is that you need to have e-hailing drivers will need to have an SOS built in their apps so that customers can actually make a report and drivers can use it as well to make a report.
Yes, yes.
So will all this raise the cost of doing business for the industry?
To start with, SPAD once we regulate the e-hailing industry, we'll try to put in place a level playing field for both the conventional taxi drivers as well as the e-hailing operators, which was introduced in this country way back in 2014. At the same time, we are also ensuring that the cost of doing business is to the minimum. So the e-hailing operators will be paying similar to those that are being paid by the taxi operators and taxi drivers.
Okay, so with this increase of medical checks, stringent checks on the drivers, so obviously there will be a slight increase in the cost. So have you gotten any feedbacks from the operators maybe, or maybe from the taxi drivers themselves?
Yes, we have been trying to get information from the ground, both from the conventional taxi drivers as well as the e-hailing drivers. Yes, the e-hailing drivers especially, they are quite concerned about the increase in cost. But as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to ensure that the cost of doing business is to the minimum. But nonetheless, since we are trying to create a level playing field for the betterment of industry as well as the pengguna, the rakyat, the e-hailing drivers have to comply with some of the additional regulations and policies that we are going to put in place. Namely, the features in their apps should include the panic button, the SOS button, as well as the rating for the drivers. Those features must be made available by the operator.
Okay, so have you gotten any feedback? That's from the drivers. What about the operators themselves? Companies like Grab and Uber and other e-hailing companies, have they given you any feedback in terms of do they see a reduction? Maybe this will deter some people who want to become e-hailing drivers in the future.
They have come back to the Commission many times. We again have explained to them that in order for the e-hailing operators to have their hand in this industry, they must comply with this regulation to ensure that it's a level playing field. Our responsibility is to ensure that the safety of the passengers is the most paramount. So whatever it takes for the Commission to ensure that both the drivers as well as the would-be passengers, their safety, their comfort are taken care and should be in the best interest of the rakyat.
Okay, so best to say is to create a level playing field as well as to ensure the safety of the users.
Yes.
Because of some of the cases that we read in the past as well.
Right.
Okay, so we will get back to you and we'll be talking more about the cost and the fares and how exactly these regulations will affect you, the consumers. So we'll be back after this. Stay with us on Ringgit Sense. Back on Ringgit Sense, thanks for staying with us. Now, still with the head of operations for SPAD, Zamri Mahmud. Okay, Tuan Haji, back to our discussion about the new e-hailing laws. Now we want to talk a little bit about the fares. Now, will there be a chance that with these new regulations, SPAD will start to regulate the fares for e-hailing operators?
No, we are not about to regulate the fares for e-hailing drivers because I think the basic principle is to allow the market to decide. Okay, the fact that we encourage the taxi drivers to not only do street hailing, meaning waiting their passengers by the roadside or at malls and terminals, they are also encouraged to use the e-hailing applications whenever they are carrying passengers. Yes, we are not going to regulate the fares because I think the market will decide for itself.
Okay. Now, as we've read in the media, a lot of incidents involving taxi drivers, e-hailing drivers, and a lot of things leading up to the regulations. So can you give us specific examples of what actually happened in the past that made SPAD decide that this is the right time to instill new regulations?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Because to start with, SPD is very concerned about the state of the taxi industry in the past. We have been looking and trying to put in initiative to ensure that the taxi industry change its image. Then came e-hailing, and it makes our effort easier, if I may say. But nonetheless, there's a new challenge where we, at the same time, have to ensure that there is a level playing field for both the conventional taxi drivers as well as the e-hailing drivers. We are quite happy initially for the e-hailing industry when they actually put in place a very stringent recruitment exercise. But I'd like to take this opportunity to insist that e-hailing in the future will ensure that they put as much effort to ensure that the drivers that they put in their system are properly checked, and we will not hesitate to take action on these e-hailing operators if they fail to do so.
Okay.
In the past, as per your question, there are incidences even with e-hailing drivers being on the wrong side of the law, and we have to again take action on the operators.
Okay, so in terms of the taxi drivers, with the new regulations, how can they benefit, and what is actually preventing them from becoming e-hailing drivers themselves?
Yes, in fact, SPD, the government is encouraging the existing 30,000 taxi drivers in Klang Valley especially to also carry passengers using the applications. Okay, they can pick up passengers through street hailing, but at the same time, if there are requests, they can also carry passengers through using applications. This we call dynamic pricing. So that's an advantage to the taxi drivers, and because we feel that that is a better business approach for the existing taxi drivers to be able to increase their income.
Okay. Now, there's this application, this Meter On app, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It's being used to actually, it's for taxi drivers currently, is that correct?
Yeah.
Are you going to use it for e-hailing drivers as well?
Yes.
How does it work?
Once we regulate the e-hailing industry, e-hailing operators will have to submit details of their e-hailing drivers to be in our inventory, and that will be reflected in our Meter On. So that is application which have several features, among which will include the profile of the drivers.
So we can do background checks ourselves?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. One more thing is, what if there are disputes between the drivers and the operators? For instance, a driver is banned because he isn't able to complete jobs, but maybe there are reasons for it. Maybe the customer cancelled on him.
Yep.
So he's banned from the company. So in these cases, disputes, can SPAD now come and intervene?
Presently, we have a mechanism where even the taxi drivers can raise any issues they have with their operators for us to mediate. It will be the same for e-hailing drivers.
Okay.
They can call up or approach our Aduan centers, and there is an SOP that they will follow through.
Okay.
And we can assure the e-hailing drivers that they will be given the same attention as the other taxi drivers.
So how exactly can they do that? if some of our viewers right now are e-hailing drivers themselves and they want to address grouses to you, or they have questions about how they can actually lodge a complaint maybe, how can they come to SPAD? Do they come physically or can they go online?
They can even do it through online. We have our website, I think 1-800-88-7723, or through our aduan@spad.gov.my, or even our Twitter. They can easily go online and we'll attend to their grouses. But definitely we will get their issues, and if there's a need, we'll also call in the e-hailing operators, and if there is a real need, we will have to mediate between the two parties.
Okay, very well then. So I guess we will have to see how this actually affects the companies and the e-hailing drivers themselves then.
Yeah.
Give it time. All right. With that, thank you so much, Tuan Haji, for sharing with us on Ringgit Sense. Hopefully, our viewers have a little more information on how the e-hailing regulations will work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, most welcome. Thank you.
And thank you to you as well for watching. That's all the time we have for this week. If you want to see the extended version of the interviews with the e-hailing drivers and also with Grab shown earlier, visit our Facebook page, Ringgit Sense TV3. You can also share with us your thoughts on today's discussion with SPAD. Next week on Ringgit Sense, we try to answer this question. Can young working adults afford to buy a home in Malaysia? We speak to the real estate developers to find out why homes are seemingly so expensive and what can be done to bring down the cost. Share with us your concerns about buying a new home on our Facebook page. I'm Azara Tagaya. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.